One of the most common questions that I get is why is my sourdough sticky? If you do it right, it shouldn't be. So let's go over a few tips in this video. You can see here this dough is fully fermented, it's nice and elastic, it's not sticking to my hand, and it's pulling away from the bin, so it's ready to go. Making sure that your dough is not sticky starts from mixing. A lot of people undermix their dough, which will result in a stickier dough and also less of an oven spring. Make sure that you're choosing a high protein flour, something with 14% like King Arthur bread flour would be great. And then you're going to want to mix it really well. If you're doing this with your hands, it's harder to gauge, but if you're doing with the stand mixer, you want to mix until it starts to pull away from the side of the bowl. This usually happens between like 5 to 7 minutes for me. Mixing like this is helping to build the bond between the flour and the water, which bakers like to call gluten development. All right, for the next tip, let's talk about coil folds or stretch and folds. So for the first set, I do stretch and folds, and I like to stretch pretty aggressively. And then for the rest of the sets, I do coil folds, and I like to do them kind of gently and just fold the dough over. If you stretch it too much, it'll start to tear, and then that will cause it to be sticky as well. So keep an eye on it. If it starts to tear as you're stretching it, stop doing coil folds and just let it rise the rest of the way. All right, next tip is temperature. You want to make sure your dough is between 70 to 75 degrees. Not only does this ensure consistent results, but if your dough is too warm, it's going to over ferment or overproof, and then it's going to become really sticky. So if you've done everything right, your dough should just fall out of the bin like mine did right there. So from the moment that I mix it to this moment right here where I'm shaping it, it's usually about 6 or 7 hours. One of the biggest reasons that people have sticky dough is because they're over fermenting their dough. For a classic country loaf like this, which is what most people are making, your dough should only ferment on the counter for about 6 or 7 hours. Some people would like to go a little bit longer. But if your recipe says to ferment overnight or for more than 12 hours, I really don't think that that's a good idea. Think about it like this. When you feed your starter, it rises and then it falls. Your dough, it does the exact same thing. Whenever you add starter and flour and water together, it's going to rise and then eventually it's going to fall back down. And usually that happens after about 8 hours, it starts to reach its peak. The key is that you want to catch it before it reaches its peak, shape it, and then put it in the refrigerator and then bake it right whenever it's at its peak. And if you follow all these tips, you'll never have sticky dough again. Thanks for watching.